Hey everyone, welcome to the Naked Conversations podcast. I'm your host, Sage Hobbs, author and creator of Naked Communication, and I'm so psyched you're here. This show is all about taking charge of your life in new and inspired ways to create a life you deeply love. It's about being more you in all areas of your life, more courageous, more free, more alive, more naked. I'll be sharing stories and advice from amazing people around the world who are up to incredible things on how they are successfully breaking free from fear and old patterns in order to create incredible relationships and impactful lives so that you can do the same. This is the place to be inspired to live a courageous and naked life. Let's do this. Hi everyone, welcome back to Naked Conversations. I'm your host, Sage Hobbs. As always, thanks for being here. This is a solo episode today. During solo episodes, I usually tell you some stories and share some of my own learnings and teachings and places where I have been stretched and inspired lately. Today's episode is slightly different, where I will actually be giving you some of the behind the scenes to my work in my book, Naked Communication. And I'll be really talking about some tools along with stories to help you leverage your voice to really ask for what you want with confidence, with clarity, so you're much more likely to get it in your personal relationships, in your professional relationships. This one is proven to be incredibly valuable with everyone who has tried it out and has given me feedback about it. So I'm really excited to share some of that with you today. Before I dive into that, I just want to make sure you know how to access more episodes and find out more about this work. You can check out all the other episodes and learn more about my book or how to work with me over at sagebhobbs.com. There are incredible episodes over there from women who are talking about destigmatizing mental health, to what it's like to be a triple minority, young, Black, and female, to running their own B corporation on sustainability, or exploring your psychic powers and your feelings of inadequacy and being enough and all sorts of things around women's leadership and courage and pushing our edge. So head on over and check those out. You also can actually get the book over there. And that's what I'm going to talk about today, is this piece of the book that I have found again and again to be one of the more powerful pieces. And I just wanted to offer it to my listeners who may not have accessed it yet themselves. So the book is called Naked Communication, Courageously Create the Relationships You Really Want. And it's really about how to create relationships you love in all sectors of your life, to solve conflicts with confidence, to keep your fears of being judged or disappointing others from interfering with you and your true connection with people. And really about stopping that cycle of self-doubt, doubting your value, your desires, your worth, all of that some of us get so caught up in. Because this work around living a naked life is about you being inspired in action, in momentum, to live a fully self-expressed life that allows you to have meaningful relationships and deep impact in your families, in your communities, and beyond. That is what we're cultivating here. Women who are showing up more fully in more real and authentic ways and using their brilliance and their expertise and their wisdom to affect change in their personal lives and beyond, into the work that they do and the way that they show up in their communities. So we're talking about the power of the ask today, which is a key component in the book. And I have run many workshops and talks on this that are 60 to 90 minutes long. So obviously I'm not going to talk at you through the show in the same capacity. That would just be boring. You would get very sick of me. So make sure that you go and get this guide for yourself. It's totally free. It's over at my website. You can put in sagebhobbs.com/ask and it'll take you directly to it. Or if you just go to sagebhobbs.com, any place that you subscribe or join, you will be sent this awesome guide. And it's much more robust than what I'm going to cover here. So I just wanted you to know how to find the follow-up to this. If you're listening and you want to take notes and you're in the car and you can't, whatever the case may be, head over to the website and grab it later. So the power of the ask is something that I still really struggle with myself. It is really not natural for many of the women that I have encountered in my personal life and in all of my professional work. I'm not saying that some aren't more adept at it than others. I'm not saying it's a problem for every woman. just as a generality, my experience has been we are conditioned more often to play along, to not be greedy, to not be self-absorbed, to bide our time, to play it safe, to not disrupt. And when you really learn how to make requests of people, sometimes that feels like rocking the boat. And when you do it with practice in a way that is very true and real to you, that is compassionate and kind-hearted and is clear and confident at the same time, the outcome can be enormous in your life. The results can be extraordinary in terms of how you see your personal and your professional lives change. So here's how I came to really get clear about. I'm going to give you some examples, some stories of how I really got clear around the power of the ask. The first one for me, it was really as a child, and my mom taught me this, and I'm so appreciative. And if she's listening, which she usually does, shout out mom, because you really, really instilled this in me early on. Sometimes my brother or sister or I would be having like a little fit, we'd be complaining about something or whining or whatever the case may be. And she would look at us and say, well, do you have a complaint or a request? And at the time I'd want to roll my eyes and be like, oh, that's so annoying. Can't you just give me what I want or support my whining story and, tell me I'm right? But in truth, that distinction of do you have a complaint or a request has served me so profoundly in my life. And it's one of the things I like to teach to my own kids, because sometimes we are just complaining. We just need to be heard. We need to be seen. We're upset about something. That's totally cool. I do that with my husband, with some of my girlfriends. We all need to do that sometimes. Other times, however, that complaining can completely be draining. If it's the same complaint persisting over time, if it's something that's really hurt your feelings, if it's something you really need in order to make it your life work, that complaint is actually a request being masked as a complaint because we're not sure how to make the request. So that distinction of, is it a complaint? Do you have a complaint or a request has really been kind of this hovering question as I've been a counselor and now a coach and a writer and a speaker. Where can I apply that more to my life and to my work? And how can I just make sure that the times when I'm really complaining because I need to complain, that that's all that it is, and the times when there's actually a buried request that needs to be made, that I'm paying attention to that and pulling it out. So some examples are, when I had my first kid, actually when I had both my children, I was still a school counselor and I was working in a middle school, and it was amazing, but it was super intense, high demands. I gave of my heart and soul in that work, and I loved the opportunity to connect with kids and families in that way. But when I had the transition into motherhood, I was like, oh my gosh, I can't do that full time. I don't know how I'll have the stamina, not necessarily because of the hours, but because of the amount of energy required to give and give and give all day long and then come home and give more. And my husband is also, he's a teacher. And so both of us had that experience where our careers required a lot of giving, sometimes in high intensity situations, and we wanted some gas left over when we got home. And so I went to my boss at the time and I requested that I work 4 days a week instead. And I was super nervous. The job was definitely a full-time job in terms of what needs there were within the building. But I was also really clear that I could show up 4 days a week and give 1,000%, be really efficient, and use my time well so that I could still really be of service there and have a day that allowed me to be at home with my baby and take care of what it took to now manage a home life differently. And in short, the answer was yes. And it was yes again after my second child. And that never would have happened if I hadn't gotten up the courage just to make that request. Another example would be of a client of mine who runs an organization and has had to make requests of her board of directors, which happens to everybody who runs an organization, a nonprofit in particular, and really having to go to them and stand in her leadership and show them her vision of the direction moving forward for this organization and ask them to get on board and align with her and partner with her in the growth strategies she had in mind. If she didn't do that, the outcome would have been different. and maybe wouldn't have been as guided by her wisdom and her vision for where she wanted this work to go. So this comes up all the time. And I still need help on it a lot. I was just at the farm. I was visiting this farm nearby that we love so much. It might be one of my favorite places ever. Honestly, it's truly magical and my kids adore it. And we go a couple times a season. And a girlfriend of mine was visiting and we took our kids there. And we took our kids there with another friend who was the dad, with a male friend of ours. And we were talking about some friend of ours who was negotiating her salary. And it was so cool because we asked for his input, and his input was so seasoned in negotiation and request making as it pertained to one's salary. And both of us were like, gosh, we have really very little experience with how to ask for more money. And we were listening intently. And as it turned out, we shared that wisdom and advice with our friend. And she made a request. And the request was, when I followed up with her about it, she's like, oh my gosh, it was a 2-minute conversation that was worth thousands of dollars, literally. So she almost honestly didn't make the request. She was like, I don't want to seem unappreciative. I really value how they give me flexibility in my job, and I don't want them to take that away from me. And he kept saying, well, what are you talking about? Like, you're still going to provide all of that value and at the price point that's market appropriate. So again, the power of making the request, is so huge. I've had that conversation with clients who are returning back to work after maternity leave and wanting to negotiate what their schedule will look like. I've had it with clients and friends regarding their marriages and their partnerships and negotiating what their dinner looks like, making dinner, doing laundry, their sex life, their intimacy, their needs and desires for pleasure. It truly permeates everything. And we as women oftentimes find it quite hard. And I 100% still there with you. I practice this all the time and still just recently had a friend turn to me and say, what are you talking about, Sage? You have to just ask. I can't believe you haven't asked that yet. You're the one who writes about it and speaks about it. And in the circumstance that she was telling me to ask, I was just more scared. It was more vulnerable. It felt more risky. And I needed to be reminded of what I know in my heart and my soul and in my experience is that requests carry profound opportunity to shift the course of our relationships and our lives. So today, I want to walk you through what I call the ask formula. And like I said, I can't get into all of it here because I think you'd be bored if I just spoke at you the whole time. I prefer to do this in a dynamic conversation in a workshop setting or, in a coaching call. But I feel like it's so important to get this out there more that I just want to offer it here. And then you can go and grab the full worksheet at sagebhobbs.com/ask. And then if you have questions about it, dig into it, check it out. And if you have questions about it, message me on Instagram. I love that. I take that little phone of mine with me everywhere. I try not to be on social all the time. That's really important to me. But I definitely love to hear from you. It's like my number one pleasure in sharing this work is knowing that it is getting into the hands of people who are doing something with it and having it impact their lives. So grab the cheat sheet over on the website and then go ahead and send me a message and tell me how it's working in your life or what challenges or questions you have about making requests. So let's walk through the process. Let's look at this a bit together. So this is the ask formula, 4 clear ways to get what you want. How to powerfully ask for what you want and show up as the leader you're meant to be. How to powerfully ask for what you want and show up as the leader you're meant to be. I've done this workshop in a group of women who are in the construction industry. That was so cool because that industry is so male dominated and it was so interesting to hear their perspective. I've done it in local community networks. I've done it in various places with different audiences and it always resonates. So I hope that some nugget of this resonates for you, even if you've heard pieces of this work before. So first of all, why is it so important to ask for what you want? Why does it even matter? I think I just gave you some examples that showcase how it has mattered in some of my clients' life and my own life, but there's these tenets as why it matters that I want to share with you. And the obvious answer is so that you get more of what you desire. Who doesn't want that? Who doesn't want more of what they want, right? But the less obvious answer is so that you're not regretting or resentful about what may have happened if only you'd asked. So that's something that I really work with people on, because when we let something we really long for fester and we don't even go for it, we have this potentiality to really move through our lives with regret or resentment. And some of you may know that I'm a cancer survivor and that I lost my dad to cancer when he was 60 and I was 33. And I really learned through my experience in my own cancer journey and then watching my dad battle it and die with so much grace. What people often want at the end of their lives is that sense of connection and community and love. Did I love deeply? Was I deeply loved? And to have gone for it, right? It's not usually that they regret the mistakes that they made. It's usually that they regret what they didn't try, what they didn't go for. A client of mine and I call this reaching for the brass ring. If you've ever ridden one of those old-fashioned carousels where there was a brass ring to reach for, which I did as a little girl. So that's so important that you don't have this festering sense of regret or resentment because you didn't even make the request. You didn't make the ask. And the least obvious and maybe the most important answer is so that you live the most powerful and self-expressed life possible. Let me say that again. So you live the most powerful and self-expressed life possible, which is really the key to creating an extraordinary life. And an essential part of that is learning to ask for what you need and what you want. You'll be an empowered leader. You'll cultivate meaningful relationships. You'll learn to speak up and use your voice in your life, in your family, your work, your community, everywhere, really to feel fully alive. So here are the 4 steps, and it's really liberating. There's a sense of liberation when you practice and get better at, because practice usually helps us improve, how to make requests. So you're going to stumble and it's going to be messy sometimes, and you're going to stick your foot in your mouth occasionally or stutter over your words when you are practicing this if you're somebody who hasn't very often asked for things. And I mean little things to big things. It's asking for your food to be hotter at the restaurant or asking for the raise. There's a gradation of significance perhaps, but it's all practice in the asking. And some of us are better at it than others, and that's fine. It's a skill. The good news is it's actually one you can practice and learn, and that the outcomes are limitless to this practice. So know what you want. That's the first step. And it sounds so simple, but it's actually sometimes the step that stumps us. The step that stumps us. If you don't know what you want, nobody else knows better, right? So if you don't know, who does? And what I have found is if I'm not clear, then someone else kind of fills in the gap. They sort of make the decisions or drive the bus. So really only you can answer this. It's something to consider about your desires in various parts of your life. And you want to be as specific and honest as possible about what you want. It makes it easier for the person to say yes too when you're clearly standing in what you want. So when I went in and spoke to my boss, I knew I wanted to go down to 4 days. That's what we could afford. I needed to still work a fair amount. And I was clear about that, right? Because I knew that that would work for our family and give me a little bit of breathing room and help me bridge this transition from non-mom to mom and to working professional mom, okay? So you want to just dig into that a little bit, like that inner child inside of you who really knew what she wanted, who had a sense of like what felt good or right or fun or the direction to pursue. Most kids have a sense of that. So think of it from that angle if that helps you. But first step is to know what you want. And the second step is then to make a clear request. No more wishing, hinting, hoping, and implying, although it's tempting and we wish our partners would just pick up on the clues, or we wish our bosses would just see our great work and offer us the next leadership opportunity on the team. It just isn't as effective typically to wish and hint and hope and imply. It just is way more efficient and effective most of the time. Now, again, I know that there are cultural nuances and you have to know the culture that you're working inside of in terms of your organization's culture, the culture of your ethnicity or background or family system. I fully respect that what I'm saying here may not fit in every cultural dynamic. Layer it on for yourself and use the pieces that work for you. But my experience has been that making a clear request that's kind and that's gracious, but is very clear, is more likely to get me the outcome I desire. And I've tested this and written about it and tried it out with clients, and it really, really helps you zero in on what it is you're actually desiring and how to ask for it clearly. And then the third step is to use the sandwich approach. And this is like a little more complicated. So again, you might want to read it in the book, which you can get on Amazon, Naked Communication, or grab the cheat sheet, depending on how deeply you want to dive into this. But the sandwich approach is about appreciation, request, acknowledgement. That's the way in which you actually have the conversation. You sandwich the request in between appreciation and acknowledgement. And appreciation is offering specific and authentic gratitude to someone for the contribution they make in your life. It has to be honest and sincere in order for it to work. Otherwise, they're just going to think you're buttering them up or, kissing butt in order to get what you want. It really has to be genuine. You have to really thank the person for who they are in your life. And that always just softens everything and makes that person feel seen and heard and valued. And then you want to put that specific request in. And after you make the specific request, like I would like to go to 4 days a week, you want to acknowledge what that impact is of that request, what the impact of that request may be on that person. So in the case with my boss, I needed to just acknowledge that, look, I know that might throw off the way we do things. We might have to change the day that we meet as a team. We might need to figure out some therapeutic or crisis response people who can fill in for me on the Fridays that I'm not here. I just acknowledged that my request could have an impact in how the system ran or in her work, right? Because it really layers in this piece of, I know that this request has an impact beyond me, and I'm still making the request, but I want you to know that I am in this conversation with you. It shows respect and thoughtfulness. So that's step 3, is to use the sandwich approach. It's unbelievable. It's kind of like if you've ever worked in a company that gives formal performance reviews. If they're trying to do a good job in their management and leadership, they hopefully will give you some praise and then some areas for growth and then some praise. That's a really great way to deliver feedback. And this is similar, but it's housing your request. And the last piece is to be with the responses of yes, no, or maybe. This is super hard, but much easier when you practice. So you have to be willing to get a no. When you make a request and the request is bold or it's vulnerable or it's risky, like you may get a no, or you might get a maybe up for consideration later. Come back to me at another time, or let's talk about it and see if we can find a middle ground, right? Being with any response really allows it to be a request versus a masked demand or an ultimatum. It feels less desperate. And kind of like dating, where, and I remember this from dating when I really wanted to get married and have children, like I feel like you can tell, right? Or the salesperson who's so desperate for that sale, and you can tell there's that desperation. It's different than the groundedness and the purpose-drivenness of somebody who really believes in their product or really wants to meet a partner. There's like this please, please, please in it. And that takes some of the power out of your request. You want to be in the possibility of a full yes, but be able to handle a no or a maybe. And if you're going to make 10 requests and you get 7 out of 10, you're doing pretty darn well. So you really want to practice this until your brain gets trained to handle the yes, the no, or the maybe. So that is really what it looks like. Now, again, on the worksheet at sagebhobbs.com/ask, there's places for you to step through the whole process and to answer some questions using specific scenarios in your own life. I really hope you'll check it out. I'd love to hear how it works for you or what roadblocks you face. I know that it doesn't work every time, and I'm really open to your feedback. This is how you get better at being naked, at peeling back the layers of your own conditioning, of the messages or stories you have in your head around what it's okay to ask for, what it's not okay to ask for, how it looks to be a woman and a leader, how it looks in terms of, are you pushy? Are you showing up as too much? Are you aggressive? Are you bossy? All of this conditioning and messaging that you may or may not have. This will help you bust through some of that and really begin to ask your husband or partner for what it is you truly want. Ask your boss for what it is that would make your life work better, would make you thrive more in your workplace, would make you tap into your skills and talents more effectively. Ask your clients or your audience what else they need from you and really be able to hear their answers. All of it comes from knowing how to make clear, effective, honest, and authentic requests. And it takes courage. It takes being naked. Again, some of you might be like, no, it doesn't. I ask for what I want all the time. That's fine. You might have a different edge point, but there is an edge point for everyone where that request feels extra bold or extra outrageous. And I just want you to dance with what that might be for you and how you can practice doing this more consistently over time. So thank you so much for being here and being a part of this conversation. Again, please let me know what you think. I truly am asking that of you. I'm making the request to hear from you. So if you have listened to this episode and you're like, oh my gosh, I exactly needed to hear this right now. I have been dying to ask this person blank, blank, or blank. Send me a message on Instagram, Sage B. Hobbs, or email me if you want to, sage@sagebhobbs.com. I really would love to hear from you. Thank you for being a part of this conversation. Share it with the people in your life. Let's have a revolution of girls and women who are truly stepping up, stepping out, speaking out, and making powerful requests in all areas of their life so they can lead effectively and have the relationships and connections that they're longing for. Thanks so much, and I'll talk to you next time. Thank you so much for listening to Naked Conversations. Yay! It really means the world to me every time you show up. And if you want to know more about how to work with me personally in my coaching, you can check that out over at sagebhobbs.com. You can also get some great free resources over there about how to make powerful requests and many blog posts full of resources for living a naked life, as well as grab a copy of my book, Naked Communication, Courageously Create the Relationships You Really Want. Thanks again. See you next time.